you so much to the organizers and those that technically supported this initiative for such an opportunity where we can actually share our experiences, especially on the side of mine workers, as well as the other reflections that we had from Frankel previously, as well as from Bishop Jele in the morning, and it's reality. This is the things that are actually happening on the ground. And I'm one of the victims. I've worked for Goldfields. You might actually be aware of Goldfields, which is a mine in South Africa. And fortunate enough, these mines, after the case that was filed by the lawyers, they keep on changing names. Today, the same mine that I was working at, before it was called Ludoren. And then after that, they changed to say it's Kloof. And then, which was belonging to Goldfields, and today it's no longer that Kloof. It's called Sibanye Gold. And it's very funny, and I don't know what is the motive behind it of changing names, but nevertheless, I think this platform actually gave us an opportunity to step back and understand the human rights violation against the mine workers, because previously I was just proud to work in the mines. And most of the mine workers were dying in shadows. We only aware of mine accidents, and it was highly prioritized. But we never thought of TB in the mines, even HIV in the mines. Previous speaker was talking more on HIV in the mines, but looking at the work that we've been doing on the ground, although it's not documented so much, we find that most of the mine workers are HIV negative, which is questionable when we talk about TB in the mines, whether the effect is caused by the lowering of the immune system, or it's caused by the exposure to the silica dust. So there is more opportunity that researchers has to go forward and study and maybe come back to us with the science of the problem. Currently, we've got the figures of the problem. And I also look at the employment patterns that are actually taking place in the mining houses. He talked about the current speaker the previous speaker was talking about certain figures, but those figures, if you can go to the mines, they've already changed. They change on a daily basis. Sometimes they change it to give certain numbers of or specific work to labor brokers, short-term contractors, and those are the areas where they halt the unionization at the working place, and as well as they compromise the rights of the employees. And many other statutory benefits are lost in between the transition. Coming back to my presentation, where I talked more on wealth and death, it's quite actually clear that Southern Africa mines are looking like this, where some people are benefiting on the gold, and then the communities are getting bodies to bury. But all of this is actually taking place in the shaft underneath the ground, where the process is taking place. So when I look at how we have just structured the presentation, is that I'll look first on the vision of our organization. I'll look at the process of recruiting a miner, especially the migrant miner from Lesotho, Swaziland, South Africa, and Mozambique. The pre-medical examination and also the occupational environment assessment. The working environment, the time of leaving the mines and the experiences. The compensation system partly was actually dealt by Charles in the legislative processes. And then what we have looked at and observed during the time. Swamiwa is actually a leading organization that empowers miners and their families actually to actually access all of the services that miners are actually supposed to get. And it's well structured. We are actually an affiliate to Southern Africa Miners Association, which is SAMA. And in the country, we got a representative to the CCM, which is a country coordination mechanism in Swaziland, where Global Fund is actually supporting initiatives or national responses on TB, malaria, and HIV. And we also became to be a member of the Project Implementation Committee, which is supported by the World Bank and as well as DFID. And other forums where we actually participate or we've got a representation as an organization that is highly affected. And we work with ex-mine workers, widows, and their families. This is the newly elected board, which involves the widows and the ex-mine workers. And when you look at the way how miners were recruited, they were recruited in the various rural areas, including South Africa, Swaziland, Mozambique, Lesotho, and they were taken to come and work in the mines. And they were recruited through a system, which is a recruitment agency was responsible for that recruitment. That was the Employment Bureau for Africa Limited, that is initialized as TEBA. TEBA is a recruitment agency. And during the process when you are recruited, you are issued with a corporate permit. And that corporate permit is within, you have to actually to report to the mine and confined in the mine, and you have to come back home without spending an extra day within that corporate permit at the mine, because you'll face penalty at the border, and that penalty is about 1,500 in rands. And then during this process of recruitment, you go through a medical examination, and without any diseases or without any shade of something that they cannot understand or think that it can have an impact on your employment, you are not allowed to come and work in the mines. And you can tell the issues of blood pressure was so much important to them, to the mines. The functioning of the lungs, the body weight, STD, which is sexually transmitted infection, and also other diseases that has to do with areas of typhoid. And as well as you have to go to acclimatize, which is whereby you are taken to a heat chamber and you have to spend something like 5 days, 45 minutes a day, where you have to climb a step for the 45 minutes. The heat was set, it's normally set at above 32.5 degrees. and passing that will mean that you can be able to go and work underground. And when you look at that picture, we were waking up as early as 3 o'clock in winter at the Deba offices. You wake up at 3 o'clock, but the train will pick you up at 9 o'clock. The question is that, what will you be doing for the rest of those hours? We have to strip naked. As you can see, all of the men, they were naked. Not even without anything in the body. It's like a baby when it's born. So, we don't know why they were doing this to us, but it happened. And then when you come to the mine, you'll actually experience that you'll be called unskilled labor. It's a question to me when you say that you are unskilled. What does unskilled mean? If these people can produce those ounces of gold, unskilled, what does that mean? To my understanding, this was the way on how they can easily pay lower wages. Majority of the employees, the mine employees, they fall under this category, unskilled or manual labor. And then most of the supervisors were mainly whites. Even if the person cannot be able to write his own name, but because of the color of the skin, he will be a supervisor. Without education, he can be a supervisor. And they've got huge benefits, good benefits. For miners, we're confined 20 miners in one room. My room was a small room, and we were 18 in that room. There is one bed underneath and one bed on top. And if you drink, you were not allowed to sleep on top because you urinate at night when you are drunk, and then you'll cause a problem. Then the block, each block for those 18 persons per room was able to accommodate 422 people. And most of the people that were kept in the hostels were black. With 8 toilets, 8 shower taps, and 9 washing basins. When you look at the shower taps, it's just an open space, but there is only one tap that is on top of your head. Yes, there are some couple of changes in the accommodation in the mines, but this has been a history, and it's no longer a history in certain mines. And during that recruitment, you are not told about any risks, any exposures, any environmental exposures, or anything that has to do with your health in the mines. If, like myself, if I was told about the issue of silica dust in the mines, I would have taken that opportunity to come and work in the mines. We went to interview one family where the miner has been suffering from TB, silicosis and HIV positive, and was repatriated in the mines in 2009, and he's been surviving with the disease since then. And then he has been going from hospital to hospital seeking medical services that can cure him. And he never get one until he passed away in 2014 March. When we interviewed the son, he said that he will not actually opt to come and work for any gold mine in South Africa. Looking at the situation that they experienced from their dead, since he left the mine, he never ever rested. He never enjoyed staying at home. He has been to hospital, in and out, and the little money that he came home with was all spent for medical services. The post-employment services are not there for mine workers, actually. Whether you have got TB, you've got silicosis, it's not there. When you cut off from your employment, you don't even qualify to go to any mine hospital, except that you have to rely on the public health. Whereas when you look at the supervisors, which were mainly white, and today we've got a mix of them, and some of this mix, it's actually a makeup for employment equity targets. You'll find them, they've got a medical aid scheme, and they've got a choice to go to any medical service, and they've got a house, a 3-bedroom house, and a garage. And the exposure to silica dust is less to them. When you are a mine official, you go underground at 7:30. At 11:30, you have to leave the working place back to the surface. Whereas the miners are spending something like 10 to 11 hours underground working. And once you've got silicosis and you are a white miner, you are giving pension because the lung damage is permanent. But when you are a black miner, you don't get that. What you normally get is a lump sum. And that lump sum, it's like $7,500 US, and it's a once off. Then when you look at this man who was repatriated in 2009 and passed away in 2014, and he has spent more than that lump sum for his medical demand. And we look at the size, the scope, and the shape of the problem. How huge is the problem? Currently, we are not sure of how many ex-mine workers are there in the region, whether in Swaziland, in Mozambique, in Lesotho, in Botswana, in Malawi, and others. But from the statistics from the Employment Bureau for Africa Limited, which is the recruitment agency, TEBA, this has been analyzed, and this is the projection from what they have. So when we look at the gold miners, we are looking at 759,654 ex-miners. Although there are some other miners that are found to have silicosis, but they are working for the platinum mines, but due to the movements that were taking place in employment, when you got cut off from the gold mines, you can even go and work for the platinum, go to work to the coal mines. But because of the exposure to silica dust, you can still have silicosis even when you are working in the platinum mines. So this is the scenario. The playing field is too big or too large. It's a challenge to us. We are trying to offer the services, but we can't reach in all of those communities. I just imagine for Mozambique, looking at 75,324 ex-mine workers, but in reality, there are more than that, because these are the mine workers that were recorded through the formal systems, but there are those who were employed by contractors, and most of the contractors, they employed people that are coming from Mozambique because of the mechanization skills. They know how to fix little things and also to work with metals. So they are likely to have big numbers from Mozambique, and we've got big numbers in Lesotho. For the Lesotho citizens, is that most of them, they are able to work in the shaft sinking processes or in the construction sector. So there is more problem than what we estimated here. And there is less studies that has been actually done to ascertain the problems into the ex-mine workers and their communities. The current risks that we actually notice as mine workers are probably this, it's about 7 altogether that we think they are very much important and they are very much impacting to the lives of the mine workers. But the most dangerous one is the methane. It's yet controlled. The second dangerous one is the silica dust. It's not yet controlled. And controlling silica dust in the mines, it's a long way. I even look at it and doubt that they will ever be controlled. And if we need to control the silica dust, we have to shut down the mines. And we don't have gold, because gold is killing people. But in the essence, I think we've got a lot of people that are educated here in this room. They can come up with a plan on how best we can shape up the gold mining industries. This is one of the testimonies that when this miner left the mines, he leaves the mine without any of his benefits except the salary that he gets. And then later on, comes sick at home and die quietly. And when you look at social protection for these mine workers, the number of mine workers, it is not there. It's something that doesn't exist. I never see it existing for mine workers. I can see it existing for other people, not for mine workers. This is how the lungs look like for a miner and an ordinary teacher. How bad our lungs look like because of silica exposure. And at that age, 40-year-old miner with that lung, do you think that he can survive that long? Most of them, they die having taken about 3 courses of TB treatment. Full 3 courses of TB treatment, and they normally take it the way advised by the medical practitioners. But because of silica exposure, there is no way out. They pass on. If you look at that miner, he's now at home, not in the hostel. At least he can sleep in a bed, not in a bunk bed that is very small, and if you turn in the wrong way, you will fall. But what is most important is that most of the mine workers, when they return home, it's only a few that have got the best things in their homestead. But most of them, you'll find them that they are very much poor as though they never worked before. Taking, for instance, that miner down there, we visited his homestead and we requested the medical professionals to go and attend to his health conditions. And we find that the room that he was sleeping has got no window. And he's staying with his wife and his kids, and it's an infection area for TB. The whole family is actually affected by the disease that he came back from the mine. So this is not only affecting Swaziland, it's affecting Lesotho, South Africa, Botswana, Mozambique, and Malawi. So we have come together as National Association and formed this coordinating body, which is Southern Africa Miners Association, in order to raise the voice of the mine workers. We tried our best. If I can just imagine, my association was registered in 1993. But to come to the level where I am, we couldn't if we didn't actually have the regional association. From the silicosis and the TB, we managed actually to sign up about more than 1,025 miners. 488 are leaving, but 537 are dead already. There are more dead than the living. And as an association, it's not to mean that this is the correct representation of the TB burden in Swaziland. You will actually know that the TB burden in Swaziland is more than 1,348 incidence rate compared to 100,000. So Swaziland has got a high TB incidence than the rest of the Southern Africa. The contribution to that is because of the high HIV prevalence. And then there are some other claimants that are in Lesotho, a number of claimants in South Africa, a number of claimants in Botswana. We are eyeing on coming up with a number of claimants again in Mozambique. The compensation system, the statutory compensation system in South Africa, when we took over as a regional association, this is what was found in South Africa Medical Bureau for Personal Diseases and the Compensation Commissioner's Department. The question is that how can you find a person who is an ex-mine worker with his records from here? This was the situation in South Africa. And if you go through and understand really how was the setup, you'll find that most of black mine workers were not coming here because they were not aware of this. And after the intervention of the World Bank, we managed to get the system up and running, and it looked like that. Then we are able now to begin to process the statutory compensations. But, as Charles has actually mentioned, the legislative side of things, on where must you go, most of the mine workers are not even aware where they can go to claim their compensations. Because there was lack of information from the recruitment, as well as in post-employment, there is always no information that you can get from the mine. So there is more work that's supposed to be done by the National Associations of Mine Workers, as well as the unions in the working place, but then the union's interest is not in this. The interest is paid with the employer, especially National Union of Mine Workers. A lot of mine workers actually escaped employment or exited employment at their presence, and all of this was there. I remember when the first case came up, and NUM was consulted to be part of this case. They say that no, it's impossible because they've got interest. It was good, but then this is how they compromise the human rights with the membership. So these changes we are able now to see, to send people for the certification on silicosis and TB and other respiratory diseases in the Medical Bureau for Occupational Diseases. But the service is very low. They can only do 12 people a day. There is also a shortage of the people that can do certification. So I can be happy if I live here and have some people with that special qualification saying that they can come and volunteer in South Africa to give certification or to aid efforts on certifying the mine workers on the occupational diseases. On our observations, yes, mine workers, which is our members, are very happy about the process and they are in support of it. And then there is union and there is commitment to it. But the commitment is actually in different levels. The AMCU and as well as National Union of Mine Workers are actually coming up with different levels. And also the issues around the policies and the government's initiative. I think the policies and the laws on TB and silicosis are actually improving in the mines. In 2012, we managed to come up with the SADC declaration of TB in the mining sector. In 2014, we managed to actually get the ministers of health to sign a harmonized treatment protocol. And currently, we are working on a SADC code of conduct on TB in the mining sector, which is aiming to actually implement the SADC declaration on TB in the mining sector. And the problem has contributed so much to the household, especially female-headed household. You recall that the data that I showed is that there is more death than the ex-miners that are surviving. That will mean there is more widows that are household-headed. And most of them, they died because of the occupational disease, nothing else but the occupational disease. They die during the course of treatment. And also to note that the incident rate of TB in the Southern Africa gold mines is among the highest in the world. And I quote one time the Minister of Health in South Africa, which is Dr. Mtswaledi. He said that if one mine worker is killed by mine accident, 9 is killed by TB in South Africa. And he also actually mentioned that TB is like a snake in South Africa. It's heading in South Africa, but it's lashing all these SADC countries, which is Swaziland, Mozambique, Lesotho, Botswana, and others. And also to note, or to bring to our attention that there is inadequate management of occupational diseases in the mining sector. I think this has been, they talked about, Charles actually talked a lot about it. And there is more study that I actually mentioned when I started up at through the employment patterns. And also we look at coming up with a structural that will be a channel of an independent council that will have legal authority where miners can raise their concerns in South Africa. And to close, it's quite important to mention that there is no other way that we can fight TB in South Africa alone. We need your support. We need every country's support. The support, it's not to say that we need some money. it could be capacity, it could be knowledge, it could be research, and there are a lot of areas where you can actually support. And when I look on the last problem of miners, there is this issue of compensation for occupational diseases. The claim it's about 40 billion rands, that is, miners cannot access in South Africa, even when the money is there. 240,440 mine workers has to claim to the Medical Bureau for Occupational Diseases. But the challenge is, how can they go there? So there is more work for Ex-Mine Workers Association to ensure that the access is actually available. And beside the area of compensation, there is also this area of unclaimed benefits, which are created by the system. When we started, I think it's about a year ago, there was almost above 6 billion rands on unclaimed benefits. When we ask those funds, they say that they don't know where these miners are. And when we go to the paperwork, we find these miners have already sent some claims. But what's the problem? The problem is the system whereby they contracted the recruitment agency to do everything. To us, the recruitment agency is one of the position to suppress the voices of mine workers and to ensure that they can actually benefit from the process, because each and every claim they can actually forward to the funds, it attracts a fee. And you find that the money that they are actually claiming for the mine worker is far less than the fee they have to pay. So these funds decide to say, no, we cannot go on like this. Quite recently, after the engagement of partners into this, we are looking forward to have a good means on disbursement of these funds, and we have seen some lights on it, and then it's working. Maybe also to allude to what Bishop was saying in the morning, where he talked about the issues of salaries or wages of mine workers. Yes, there is a study that has been done where we find out that 40% of every black mine worker's salary or wage goes to short-term loans. And the most one that makes a lot of money out of the mine workers, it's through the recruitment agency, the TEBA, and also colluding with the National Union of Mine Workers through the Standard Bank short-term loans. And then the other one that I would like to comment on is the protective equipment that they talk most and say that miners are provided with. Some of the protective equipment miners are provided, and it attracts a fee. The most that they normally give it to the mine workers is gum boots. You don't pay for gum boots. You don't pay for hard hats. You don't pay for safety goggles. You don't pay for earplugs. But radiation is very high in the mining sector, but you have to pay for the overall. And there is nowhere mentioned of the dust, what do you call it, the thing that you put in the dust mask. And it's quite hard to wear a dust mask underground. When the deeper the mine, the huge problems are. There is less oxygen, everything, you see, bringing in the air from the environment, it costs the mine a lot. There is heat. There is a lot of other things that are actually giving stress, that you can't actually wear the mask for too long in your mouth because you will be running short of oxygen, and it's likely that you will have dehydration. So those are the things that we need. I've heard that Brazil has got good scientists, isn't it? Brazil University has got good scientists. And those are the things that we need you guys to go underground, study this, come and tell us what does it do to human lives. What commitment? Unfortunately, I'm not supposed to ask the commitment. But to end this, I would like to acknowledge the work that has been done by the National Association, not only SWAMIWA, on the intervention for TB and HIV that is actually supported by the World Bank. Voluntary Services Overseas, it's a UK organization, they support with volunteers. The IOM, they support the immigration processes. And also the Abraham Kivitz Inc., that is Charles, on the silicosis case, because he opened the eyes for us. Otherwise, we were like in the midst of things, we didn't know what is human rights. And also on unpaid benefits, where we are working with the Southern Africa Trust. It's a South African grant-making organization. And also looking at the advocacy, we work with SADC, the governments, and also Medical Services for Health, and many more partners that are actually not mentioned here. And our commitment actually is acknowledging even the ministers that are in the various countries, especially in Swaziland. We've got a former Minister of Health, of Labor and Social Security. He was very much advocating for mine workers and ex-mine workers to have improved social life, and also the government of Swaziland to allow us to give a space and also to hear us and also to talk more on how best we can actually shape the future of migrant miners. And also the association itself to give that space to me to come to this actually gathering and share our experiences. And also the mine workers, and as well as the Southern Africa Trust, the URC Swaziland, the World Bank, and ARSA. It's a couple of partners that we work with, and it's quite very much important that we can see our health being restored, but it will take time. There is more to be done than what has been done already. Thank you so much. And I'm looking for more cards for people who will be interested to join us in Swaziland, in South Africa, in Lesotho, in Mozambique, in the responses of TB and HIV in the mining sector. I thank you.